These encounters happened a few months ago and left me feeling so shaken. Here are some details just for some background information. So I briefly worked for a locally owned retail business that has 4 locations in the city that I was living in. Most of the employees rotate between the 4 locations, and I was usually scheduled at the same one for most of my week, but would sporadically work at the other locations. 2 of the stores are located inside of buildings that contain shopping centres for other retailers and restaurants. These are the 2 stores that I'd been working at during this experience. So it was mid-September, and I had about an hour left of my side of shift when a man came in, bought some things, and started conversing with me. I learned that he was a manager at another store within the same shopping centre. He didn't seem threatening or creepy in any way, but he was a bit older than me. I'll call him Joe. He visited a couple of times over the next few weeks, and then one evening, after talking for a few minutes, he asked if I wanted to smoke a blunt with him after my shift. I told him I had plans to attend a party that night, but I didn't see anything wrong with smoking with him, so I agreed. After I closed the store, we met up, walked away from the building, and smoked a blunt. He asked if I wanted to grab a quick drink, and I agreed, but said just one because I did have other plans. We got a drink, and then he used my phone to send a text message to himself so he would have my number. He seemed harmless enough, so I was okay with it. I thanked him for the drink and departed, not thinking much of it. I had been careful about how much personal information I gave to him. No full name, no description of where I lived, just that I lived in the south side of the city. For the next couple of Saturdays, he would stop in, buy something small, and say hello when I was in there. I didn't find this odd at all because he worked in the same building, and I worked at the same shop every Saturday. He would get a little bit too comfortable by sitting on the counter, which made me a little uneasy sometimes, but he was never intimidating. If anything, he was just a bit annoying because he tried so hard to seem cool, telling me about his wild partying lifestyle. I also found it odd when I found out that he'd sent me a friend request on Facebook. Maybe he looked it up with my phone number, but it still made me feel like he'd invaded my privacy. Now, fast forward a couple of weeks later. It was Saturday and I was working at a different location than usual. This store was also located in a small shopping centre, but not the one I usually worked at on Saturdays. I was finishing up checking out a customer when someone else walked into the store and out of view behind a shelf. The first customer walked out, and guess who came walking over to the counter? It was Joe. I said, "Wow, what are you doing here?" Not in an unfriendly tone, but like, what was he doing here? This led to the first encounter that made me genuinely uncomfortable. He ignored my question, and immediately parked himself nearly behind the counter as if he worked here. This made me very uncomfortable, because he was basically blocking me in behind the counter. To get out from behind the counter, I'd have to squeeze between him and a display case. He seemed to be playing dumb, and said stuff like, "Wow, I don't even know you guys had a store in here." Which I just know was bullshit, because he didn't work anywhere near this building, and I knew he wasn't just wandering around in the city like, I wonder what stores are in here. He asked how my week was, and I told him, with as little detail as possible, that I'd been having a fun week, going out with friends. He asked if I wanted to smoke again after this shift, and I said no thank you, because I had things to do. Then he was asking other kinds of drugs I was into, and started telling me about this wild night he had with his crazy friends. I was extremely uninterested, but he didn't pick up on it and just kept going. I started to get more uncomfortable, and thought about asking him to leave, but I didn't want to be rude, since he hadn't really done anything threatening. I think that he'd planned it all out strategically. He had spent so much time trying to gain my trust in a way. He never acted predatory or out of line, so that I would be more comfortable around him and allow him to get away with more creepy behaviours without saying anything. This is where it started to get weird. Again, he asked if I wanted to get high, and I reiterated that I didn't want to smoke because I had stuff to do later. He started asking if I liked uppers, if I'd ever tried speed, which I haven't. Then admitted he hadn't slept and was still high on speed from the night before. This put me so on edge that I didn't really know how to react. My anxiety was spiking, and I was starting to feel very panicky. He hinted again at the idea of us getting high together, and I was like, "Okay, what are you talking about? I told you I don't want to smoke." And he clarified that he wanted me to do speed with him, but if I did want to do it, I'd have to hang out for at least half an hour. At this point, I was so extremely uncomfortable that I didn't know what to say. I was freezing up, hoping he would just go away. Oh, and for the record, I did not know until after this encounter that speed was slang for meth. Otherwise, I would have told him to get the fuck out at that point. I told him I'd never done speed, and that I didn't intend to. He reluctantly accepted it, but didn't leave. He asked if there was an office in the back of the store, if there were cameras, and there were, so I pointed them out to him, and if we could go do speed in the office. Again, I declined his offer and wished that he would just leave. Finally, he decided to go, and he said he would see me later. After he left, I was basically panicking, because I kept realising how fucking weird the whole thing was. How did he know where I was working that day? Maybe he went into my usual location and asked why I wasn't working there that Saturday. I asked a friend to meet me after my shift so I wouldn't have to leave alone and encounter him again. Thank God, he didn't come back. But it made me so nervous I couldn't stop looking over my shoulder as I closed the store. I didn't want to tell my manager about it, because I couldn't really tell her that I went and smoked weed with him after my shift. I felt so sick from the whole thing. But it didn't end there. Fast forward to the end of October. Joe had not made any more appearances. One Friday, I had a closing shift that was only a couple of hours in the late afternoon. I had rolled on Molly for the first time the night before, and I was feeling fairly fragile, for lack of a better term. Literally moments after I'd settled in, guess who came waltzing in? My heart dropped. I was in no place to deal with him right now, and had no idea what to do. I was so exhausted and out of it that I just didn't do anything. He stayed there for my entire shift, talking my ear off the whole time, as I said nothing. And he even interacted with customers as if he worked there too. I wanted to cry the whole time. I felt powerless. I had let him get this far, and had no way of stopping him from acting this way. A part of me was legitimately afraid to simply ask him to leave, and I think he knew this. I was counting the minutes till the end of my shift. When it finally arrived, I was ready to run out of there, and he followed me out of the building. He followed me to my bus stop, the entire time, talking and talking and talking, bragging about his musician friends and his artist friend, and how much crazy fun they have at their raves. I would literally go 10 minutes without saying a word, and he wouldn't stop talking. I stood waiting for my bus, people all around us at the bus stop, and I just wanted to cry. He asked which bus I was taking, and I felt I had no choice but to tell him, because he'd seen me getting on the bus anyway. He then casually mentioned that the bus I take goes past his friend's house. I prayed that he wouldn't use that as an excuse to get on the bus with me, and frantically tried thinking of a plan to stop that from happening. I texted my friend asking him to call me to pretend we were making plans. I spoke with him for a minute on the phone, then hung up, and told Joe that I was going to hang out with a bunch of my guy friends from high school, hoping that would deter him from following me further. It was another unbearable few minutes until my bus came, and I wanted to cry with relief when he didn't attempt to follow me onto the bus. I ended up quitting the job for unrelated reasons, so I figure I would never see or hear from him again. But he texted me a few weeks later, and I simply said, "Can you please stop talking to me?" He respectfully agreed, and I blocked his number, as well as his Facebook. I was surprised how easy it had been. But a few weeks later, I was at a museum with some friends that were visiting from out of town. We had a really great day, and had just entered the gift shop when my friends decided to go to the restroom. I waited around in the gift shop, idly playing with some souvenir rocks, when I looked up and saw something that made me do a double take. My blood ran cold when my fears were confirmed. It was Joe. Here, in the gift shop, 5 feet away from me, and he was with a child. His back was to me, So I ducked out of the gift shop and ran to the bathroom to tell my friends. I felt myself starting to get panicky. Just seeing him was beginning to become triggering for me. I couldn't believe he was here. We do not live in a very small city. The museum is in an entirely different part of the city than where I'd seen him before. I was terrified. I saw him walk out of the gift shop and continue walking in the opposite direction from us. I was sure he hadn't seen me. My friends and I went back into the gift shop to look around some more before leaving. The gift shop was a little bit crowded. I was looking at a display when I felt a hand on my shoulder, and I thought it was one of my friends. I turned around to see that it was Joe. He was saying, "Excuse me," and I don't know if he meant it as in, "Can I have your attention?" or "Can I get by you?" but I felt as if I was going to throw up. We made eye contact and he smiled, and I bolted away through a crowd of people. I walked far away from the gift shop and waited for my friends to come back out, and we left quickly. I never saw Joe again after that. I hate thinking about it now, because it gives me some serious anxiety to think what could have happened if I didn't have a bad feeling, if I had ever met up with him again, if I had decided to do more drugs with him. Who knows what could have happened? It honestly chills me to this day, just thinking about the fact that he may have been stalking me. If not, then there were some insane coincidences that took place. So this is my story. I never heard from Joe again, and soon I moved out of that city. Joe, I hope we never, ever meet again. Well, anyway guys, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, then please leave a like, share and subscribe if you haven't already. I would just like to thank moogieboogie82 for allowing me to read this story, so all credit for this story goes out to them. If you would like to read the story for yourself, there will be a link in the description below, so you can go and read it. Also, if you have any stories of your own which you would like to have shared, please make sure to contact me, link in the description, and you may be featured in a future video. Well, anyway, I hope to see you soon. Now speak to you later.